You know, sometimes desperate measures call for desperate means. And being able to fill something or repair it, particularly with a figured wood or something, can be very difficult. And you know, what I'm about to show you came about by virtue of having a great big wide piece of tiger maple, and right where I needed it, you know, there was no way to cut out of it. Right in the middle of it, it looked like the thing had been hit by a forklift or something. Anyway, you know, how do I repair this? If I fill it with a filler, it's just going to look horrible. You know, and I've got all this nice pretty curl and figure that I'm going to dye, and that just made it, you know, what do you do? So here's what I came up with. What I did was I sanded the defect. I mean, I just took a random orbit sander and I sanded a hollow in it, a big old dip in it. Kind of like what you see right here. That's just, yeah, we can see that. It's just a big dip. Now, one of the things that I learned when I did that, and in the repair, I want to caution you on something. When you do that, what you want to do, you don't want to just take that sander and turn it on an edge and dive. What you want to create is a shallow. In other words, you want to sand it to where it's like that. You don't want it to be like that. The reason being, this edge right here can show. It refracts the light differently. Now, so then what I did, I dyed it. I put my dye on. Then I took when it was dry, I took a 2-part epoxy, the pour-on stuff. You know, there's tons of them out there. And what I did was I poured it until the divot was level. And then I came back and sanded it off, exactly like I've done here, right here, this one. Now, it's very important that you use the 2-part. And let me explain why. If you use a regular epoxy, like the 5-minute particularly, or 60-minute, whatever, the problem with them is that they never dry clear. And the reason for that is because they dry so fast that the air never has a chance to really escape, so they stay cloudy. So the 2-part. Now it takes, you know, overnight or a couple days for this stuff to really dry good and cured. But once it, and I will say this, the West Systems and System 3, they're a little bit more pricey, but they seem to dry just a little bit better and a little quicker. Okay, now this is the Parks. I got it at, I think, Lowe's, Home Depot, something, and it worked fine. It's just a little slower dry. Now, once I've sanded that flat, then I can dye over top of it. Now, what I have here is an alcohol-based dye, and I'm purposely got the alcohol because the alcohol dye can present me with an issue. And that issue is that it will bite into that epoxy and give me some color. Now, obviously, if you were doing something natural, you don't have it to worry about. But here's what it's doing. This is going to create a perfectly crystal clear fill. And by sanding the divot out, sanding it out, we get down to good wood. So that being the case, what we're going to do, the color, when we dyed the dip or the divot, then filled it, all we're doing is we're picking up the color and the figure and everything from the bottom. And all the epoxy's doing is putting a layer of finish in there to level it. And this allows us to look straight through it. And when finished, you just really can't even, you can't tell it's there. But again, you know, now with a water base, you don't have too much issue. I might be got the wrong dye here, maybe not. I don't know. Maybe not. There we go. I just didn't have it wet enough. Now, at this moment, you can see my epoxy. And the reason you can see the epoxy is, again, with this water-based dye, with this alcohol-based dye, it's taken some of the alcohol's tough enough, it'll bite into that epoxy some. So your solution is to simply take a little bit of denatured alcohol. Now, like I said, the waters don't bite in like that. And just kind of gently clean it back. That's all I'm doing. Now, I'm going to wipe this whole thing with some alcohol just to act like we've got a finish on here. Now, you still see I've got a sheen. But if you look, and that's just because I've got a shine from the epoxy. But I'm going to let this dry a minute, and I'm going to spray a little bit of finish on it and let you see what we got. So we'll be right back. All right, here's what we got. Now, what I want you to notice is right here in the top, you can see the little dark ridge. That's because we just dug it in. That's that sharp, sharp crease. But if you look in the bottom here, and this is just a quick shoot with some lacquer, if you look in the bottom, you're not seeing the ridge, and you can see how you're picking the color up right out of the bottom. You finish this out, and if you didn't have that ridge in the top, you'd never know it's there. Kind of trying to move it here so you see what I'm talking about. There you go. Yeah. Again, this is one of those things where, you hope you don't ever have to do it, but if you do, this works. And like I said, this is using an alcohol-based dye and using figured wood. This is the toughest scenario I've ever encountered, and but it really does do a nice job. It'll get you out of trouble. But again, that's important, to make that dip don't have a defined edge on it. And as it's drying now, you can still see I got a little bit more sheen there. But once I get that done and finished out, you'll never know it. Works pretty slick. All right. Hope you don't have to use it, but if you do, a little food for thought.